So you joined the military when you were 17, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1943, I was a freshman at the Citadel in Charleston.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And my mother died in May of that year. I was 17. And I knew that I was going to end up in the military somewhere at some point. And my dad and I went down to the recruiting station in Columbia and talked to the Army recruiting sergeant. And he told me that if I waited until I was 18, I would be drafted. And the Army would put me where they wanted me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but if you enlist while you're 17, I'll give you your choice of branches.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounded good to me. And my dad had to sign for me because I was underage.
Mm-hmm.
So I chose the Signal Corps. I was quite interested in electronics.
Uh-huh.
I'd been interested in ham radio for years.
Uh-huh.
And so when I went into the service at Fort Jackson that year, they told me that we know we're obligated to send you to electronics, to study electronics, but since you're going to be in the Army, we want to teach you a little bit about how to be a soldier first. So they sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia, for 13 weeks of infantry basic training. And they said, as soon as that's over, you graduate, we'll send you to electronics school. And I was supposed to go to somewhere in Kansas, I think. Well, I graduated in December of that year. I remember my lieutenant came up to me. This was December of 1943, 6 months before D-Day, which was in June of 1944.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember he telling me, Private Emerson, we know we're obligated to send you to electronics school, but we're going to have an invasion of Europe soon, and we're going to need a lot of infantrymen. And since you've already been trained as an infantryman, we're going to put you in the infantry. And when you get through with that, then we'll send you to electronics school.
So you're getting the short end of the stick.
So that's
there.
how I ended up in the infantry. And
Okay.
I remember when I got back from Europe after the war was over, I had to stay over there after the war was over the war ended in May of 45, and I didn't get back until April of 1946. We had a point system, and you got a point for every year of age. You got a point for every month you'd been in the Army. You got a point for every month you'd been in combat. If you had a wife or children, you got more points.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any points because I was young and wasn't married or anything, so I was low point.
Mm-hmm.
And the high point men got to come home first.
Right.
That's why I had to stay over there for almost a year after the war was over.
But was that fun though? Was there a lot of fun stuff to do over there?
A lot of what kind of stuff?
Fun?
I don't think anything was fun, but it was the shooting had stopped, so that made it fun.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I meant after the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a good time. I dated a lot of German women. Most of the German men were gone, either killed or in a POW camp somewhere. And the women were, the 10 zillion women from every man. So they were quite interested in dating, soldiers. So I dated a lot of German ladies. One of my best girlfriends was a 35-year-old woman with a 12-year-old son.
And you were like 19?
Yeah, I was 19.
Wow.
Lucy Rao, I remember her name was. Yeah. But I traveled around, and I got sent up to a post up in a little town named Vegasack, which is way up north in Germany on the North Sea, real near Bremerhaven, which was the submarine base, one of the submarine bases. I spent the winter of 1945-46 up there. It was bitter cold. Then I got sent back down south and to a large town in Bavaria named Karlsruhe, which is pretty near Stuttgart. And I was a guard in a POW camp there for many months. And then when my time came to come back home, I was sent to Antwerp, Belgium, to get on a ship to come back home. And we landed in New York in late March of 1946, and were taken to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, to be discharged. And I remember the first thing they did for us when we got to Camp Kilmer was take us into a big auditorium, and some Army guy got up and gave us the talk on the advantages of re-enlisting in the Army. We laughed him out of the room. And I remember him saying, "Oh, this is my job. I'm required to tell you this." No, I wanted to get out. I wanted to go back to school.
Did you get to electronic school?
No, I had a chance to do it, but I didn't. I wanted to get out of the Army.
Right.
I wanted to go to Georgia Tech, and my dad had graduated from there, and being from South Carolina and Georgia Tech is in Atlanta, it was an out-of-state tuition for me, and my family didn't have the money to send me. But when I got out of the Army, I had the GI, what they call a GI Bill. The Army paid for my education, so I got into Georgia Tech that way.
Oh, cool.
And that's where I met Jane when I was a junior. A sophomore.
Okay.
We dated all the way up through my junior year, and my grades were going downhill because I was spending